Hey, we've got a new segment on this program starting today, and I'm not even sure exactly how to introduce this. So what I'm going to do is introduce our new food stalker, Sandy Ward. Golf clap here for Sandy. First time here. And Sandy, talk to us a little bit about who you are and what you do and sort of, why you're here.
Well, first of all, I've been the girl behind the glass, holding up papers of, obscenities and cracking everybody up. So it's really cool to be inside the studio today. So thanks for having me. The Food Stalker is a blog that started about 3 years ago, and it's where food and fashion collide. I'm catching trains, planes, and automobiles and all my zany crazy.
I think there's a movie there somewhere.
To get to the next.
Those aren't
food
pillows.
Story. And basically, I want to go to Oz like Dorothy did, and I want to take you with me. So,
Right. Oh, I like that.
just an aha moment, a story that inspires me, and I'm, off and running to get to the story. Just for a visual for you folks and listeners out there, if Anthony Bourdain and Rachel Zoe had a child, it would be me. I love food as much as I love fashion.
Beautiful. I love that. So talk to us about this event you attended recently and who our guest is, because Jim and I have been looking forward to this all week.
Well, I've been looking forward to it as well. Mitch and I met. I was contributing editor for Luxury Marketing Council.
Mitch, and how do you say Mitch's last name?
Mitch Bichard.
Bichard, gotcha.
U.S. Ambassador for Glenfiddich Whiskey in the house. And I was assigned to do a photo shoot and was sort of given carte blanche to select how we're going to interview this guy, Mitch. Should it be in an office? Should it be out in the field? And we thought, you know what, let's just pull a jet out of our bum and do this thing on a private jet. So we met at 10:30 in the morning out at Long Beach Airport, JFI jet. Fred C. is the gentleman who coordinated this.
Wait, he was traveling in a jet?
No, this was at the hangar.
Oh, gotcha.
This was
Okay.
at the hangar for a photo shoot. And Mitch shows up, this hot guy in a kilt with glasses in one hand and bottles of whiskey in the other. So what did you think of that experience?
Everybody's
Mitch?
best friend.
No, that was fantastic.
Oh, welcome, by the way, Mitch.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
No, that was a great experience. It's not every day that I get to sit in a jet, and I think we drank some Glenfiddich 40-year-old that day as well. That was quite nice.
It was quite smooth.
Not a shabby day in the office.
Maybe a good question, too, for those who don't know. How is whiskey made?
Yeah.
Someone asked me that the other day.
It's really simple. When we talk about single malt Scotch whiskey, we take barley. We take that barley, we put it in water, steep it there for around about 3 days. We soften it up because we want to get it to kind of grow, essentially. It starts to grow, and then we put it in a kiln. We heat it up. Now, have you guys ever had a really smoky Scotch whiskey before? The ones that, they're kind of like sucking on a bonfire or licking a hospital floor a little bit. It's that kind of characteristic.
You don't sell those, do you?
No, well, not every Scotch whiskey is like that. And a lot of people say that they don't like Scotch because it's very smoky. Now, we're going to try some Glenfiddich today, and you're not going to see any smoke in it at all. But where you get that smoke from is when you dry the barley, you add peat to the fire. Now, peat creates smoke. It attaches itself to that barley. We don't do that with Glenfiddich, so there's no smoke in there at all. So after that, we take the malted barley, we grind it down, we essentially add hot water, we add yeast to it, and we create a beer. Now, in Scotland, beer wasn't strong enough, so we had to distill it up. And then we double distill in Scotland. We put it into copper pot stills twice, and then when it comes through, it's not Scotch whiskey. The reason being, it needs to then get aged for a further 3 years.
Huh.
After 3 years, it is officially Scotch whiskey.
Very interesting. So what did we bring to taste this morning?
We got a load of goodies from
our
12-year-old to our 15-year-old. I think the one that's very relevant is this one, which is our new release.
Is that this one or this one?
That's the black.
Okay.
That's
So this is
the new one that we had the event up at the Sheets Goldstein
absolutely.
residence up
Yeah.
in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah, so to explain this is the Glenfiddich 1963 replica. And 1963 is a very important year for us because it was the year that Glenfiddich was first released as a single malt Scotch whiskey.
Huh.
And it was the first time that a single malt was ever commercially available in the market.
Wow, what's it mean replica?
So what we've done is we've looked back at the recipes from 1963 of how we created this Glenfiddich. Our malt master, Brian Kinsman, also got some of the original liquids, sampled it, and he faithfully recreated this.
Wow.
So yeah, this is kind of going back in time right now. As to how Glenfiddich
it was well received at the event.
Should we try?
Yeah,
some?
so walk us through what you're doing there as you pour and kind of talk us through the...
Well, first thing is...
First things first. We like the sound
So
of that.
that's my first favourite sign, and then my second favourite sign is...
enough to go around.
That's beautiful. So here's a little taster. Probably just three of
Not
us.
too early in
Sandy?
the morning. Cheers.
Cheers. April? Probably not. Camera crew?
Sonia the sound girl.
Cyrus, definitely.
All right, so, I mean, I always say
Uno más, por favor. Uno más, por favor.
One more?
Yeah, please.
Love.
All right.
So walk us through how we should appropriately taste.
Well, you know, the great thing about Scotch whiskey is, especially with single malts, you always want to sip it, you want to enjoy it, you want to take your time on it, okay? So the first thing is really kind of have a look at the colour, seeing what's going on in the colour.
Okay.
Now, what the colour is going to tell us about Scotch whiskey is what it's been aged in. With this, we've used quite a lot of sherry casks. 90% of the casks we actually use are from you guys now. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I read that actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So ex-bourbon casks, and you know the reason we use second-hand casks in Scotland. You heard this?
No.
We're a little bit tight with our money. About a Scotsman before.
Oh, okay.
Difference between a Scotsman and a coconut. Eventually, you get a drink out of a coconut.
Those are funny.
So what we want to do is we want to get this nice happy balance between what's going on in the warehouse and what's coming off the still. So we use second-hand casks.
Okay.
That's going to give us that nice balance. So this is predominantly a lot of ex-sherry cask with a little bit of bourbon cask in it. Now, what I love about this Glenfiddich, the next thing we're going to do after we look at the colour is we're going to nose it.
Yeah.
See what's going on. There's a lot of different complex flavours that go on in Scotch whisky, ranging from that smoke that we've talked about already to this nice, delicate style that you're going to get with Glenfiddich.
So tell me what your nose tells you here.
Well, for me, what I always get with this particular Glenfiddich is pear, which is something that is very prevalent throughout
Love
the range.
pear.
Wow.
You get this nice pear note coming through, nice vanilla kick as well.
Uh-huh.
But nice and easy going.
Yeah.
You know? It's a good one for this time of day.
Beautiful. Do we sip or do we...
Give it a little sip.
Okay.
Roll it around in your palate. Hold it there for a couple of seconds and then swallow it down.
That's nice.
So what we're getting there is it's quite a nice drying sensation on the mouth.
Isn't that
Little
sweet?
Wow,
bit of a
that's-
warming
Isn't it nice?
sensation.
I
as
love
it
that
goes down.
warming sensation.
Perfect
yeah.
for the holidays.
Mitch, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
in. Really
so much
appreciate
for
your
being
time.
here.
Round of
Great
applause
job.
here. Golf
Having me, guys.
clap.
We handle everything from general corporate formation, partnership, real estate. We have a full-service litigation practice, and we also have a group of lawyers that handle bankruptcy and general insolvency matters.
We offer big firm experience with a small firm feel.
The person that you're hiring is the person who's going to be representing you throughout your entire map.
The slogan of redefining full service attempts to capture two things. One, an explanation of the breadth or the diversity of the legal services that we provide, but also to recognize that our service to our community does not end with our legal services.
Whether it's a pro bono opportunity where we're representing people for free, or whether we're actually volunteering on a project like Habitat for Humanity, for example.
It includes the philanthropic efforts, the volunteering of time, and the donating of resources outside just the four corners of this law office.
You're listening to Kicks 93.5, Laguna's Only FM. I'm Scott Hayes. This, of course, is Radio Caravan. And I'm here with my co-host, Jim Bastian. Jim, what did you think of that last segment? I'm already slurring a little bit.
Great way to start the morning.
Woo. Hey, I'm awfully proud to introduce our next guest. If you grew up in Orange County, California, as I did, in the late 60s, early 1970s, you knew this person, John Vallely. He was a standout. He went to Corona Del Mar, right, John?
Correct.
And then you played 2 years at Orange Coast College.
Also correct.
Who was your coach back then, by the way?
Bob Wetzel.
Bob Wesley. Bob West?
Bob Wetzel.
Well, you know, that's interesting. Yeah, he had a brother, didn't he?
Yes, Bill Wetzel.
Bill Wetzer, who was the vice president over at Estancia High School, I believe.
Right. He was the athletic director there. He was a teacher there. He was a basketball coach.
He was my freshman basketball coach.
Was he?
Yeah. And then he went on to play at UCLA for 2 years, 1969, 1970, and NCAA championships both years?
Yeah, 69 championship, the year that Kareem was there, and then we were the team without in 1970, and we did it again to the surprise of everybody.
Yeah, and that was under, of course, the legendary great coach John Wooden.
Correct.
Probably, I mean, I don't know if anybody would argue this point, but probably the greatest college coach of all time.
He was certainly one of the greatest college coaches, and he was the greatest one I ever played for.
Yeah, and you were back in the NCAA games. You were scoring in the 20s sometimes during those games.
For the NC2A Final Four, yes, I averaged a little over 20. I had a big game in the semifinal in 1969 against Drake. And anyway, so yeah, when somebody else was getting covered, they threw me the ball, and I managed to throw it into the little basket.
Yeah, but John Wooden moved you to the point guard at that time, did he not? Which was a position you were unfamiliar with?
We actually I played forward in high school and also at JC. So when I went to Orange Coast College, I ended up also forward, and then at UCLA they moved me to guard because I was only 6'2½", and we had these forwards that were 6'7", 6'8", 6'9".
Yeah.
And a center, with Kareem and so forth.
Yeah,
Sidney
of course.
West was 6'9", and so
Yeah.
no place for me at forward at that point.
No. You had great vertical leap back
Pretty
then?
good vertical leap. Used to spend a lot of time on the beach. Played a lot of two-man volleyball down here at Main Beach in Laguna and up and down the coastline of California. And shot a lot of hoops.
Hey, you also played a year or two in the NBA. You got drafted first round. Do I have that correct? With the Atlanta Hawks, you played with, I'm assuming, Pete Maravich at the time?
Pistol and I came in the same time. We were roommates through rookie camp and through the first part of the year, and then through part of the season in our first year in 1970.
Yeah. I wanted to ask a little bit. I wanted to backtrack a little bit on some of the players you sort of played with. You talked about Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Sidney Wicks. I'm assuming Curtis Rowe was there around that time, Henry Bibby, Maravich. These are some phenomenal players, right?
Yes.
What did you think of Maravich and his skills?
Was a superstar athlete. He was 6'5". He was faster than anybody from end line to end line. But what he didn't learn in high school and in college, I think, was how to deal with a team.
Right.
And consequently, when he got to the Atlanta Hawks the same year that I was there was a lot of difficulty on that team. There were some big stars on the team: Lou Hudson, Walt Hazzard, Walt Bellamy, and Bill Bridges. And Pistol had a tough time communicating with others. Others had a tough time communicating with him.
Yeah, and I think he was the highest paid athlete at the time in the NBA when he came in.
Well, I was never privy to the amount of income any other player was making, but I'm sure it was big because his notoriety out of college was gigantic.
Yeah, and really, if you know the Pistol Pete Maravich story, a tragic story, he became a Christian ultimately. Yes. And he was playing at a church. He went around the country speaking at various events for the youth, and he was playing at a church, and somebody, he just finished a 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 or 4-on-4. Somebody asked him how he was feeling. He said, great, and he died right there. Yeah.
Buddy of mine, Ralph Drollinger, who played at UCLA just after me, is in the Christian ministry. He actually works up in the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and works on a ministry with congressmen and so forth. So he happened to be there that day that Pistol dropped.
No kidding.
And I didn't get to meet Pistol after he made his conversion to Christianity, and it would have been nice to have had a visit with him after that.
I'm sure it would have,
I think a lot of demons were probably removed from his life as a result of his change of direction.
Totally. He was a phenomenal basketball player, great skills, great passer, had those no-looks, the behind-the-back pass. I still occasionally go back on YouTube some of his stuff, and I'm still overwhelmed by what he was able to do on the court. Yeah, he was amazing, Tim.
John, we've talked a number of times about this, but for our listeners and viewers, can you talk a little bit about when you first met Coach Wooden and what drew you to UCLA and that sort of process of assimilating to what at that point had become a pretty good program?
Well, I was being recruited by several schools out of junior college, including SC in Washington and Nebraska and Utah and some of the other big schools. But Coach Wooden had invited me up to the campus, and we walked around the campus and just looked at the great UCLA plant, shall we say. And I was really impressed with everything that was going on there. I had a chance to come into UCLA as a JC transfer and play with the greatest college player of all time in Lou Alcindor and be coached by John Wooden, who had won several championships prior to this little surf kid from Newport, volleyball player and basketball player that was coming up to UCLA. And so some people would say, well, many people said, you'll never get to play at UCLA. So what an opportunity it would be to go and play for Coach Wooden. So I asked him on the campus that day as we were looking out over it, I said, hey, Coach, if I come here, would there be a chance that I could play at UCLA? And he said, John, he says, I can promise you a chance. But you'll have to earn it.
Good for him.
And so then part of my makeup, I guess, is I'll never know if I could play at this level unless I took a shot at it. So I decided to go there, and it turned out well.
Was part of your decision or influenced by the coach?
Certainly it was influenced. I wasn't as familiar with the concepts that I would learn once I got to UCLA and dealing with challenge and change, which are certainly the concepts of the pyramid of success that he taught. I had no idea that I would be getting set up to deal with some of the biggest challenges in life by being with Coach Wooden, and I was just unaware of how great of an education I would receive there.
You know, I went online and there's a video of Johnny Wooden speaking about you. And he said he was, John Vallely, one of the finest young men I've had the pleasure of coaching. That's an incredible compliment coming from a man like John Wooden, don't you believe?
Well, it's greatly appreciated. Again, surround yourself with people and ideas. I always, people say things like that, and I think of my wife because I know that Coach would have recruited her if she had as good a jump shot as I did. But since I was married to this great woman, character was certainly something that I had to step into and learn great things from not only Coach, but from this lady. And so it's a nice compliment from Coach.
A lot of the players, and Bill Walton comes to mind because you and I have talked to Bill. You know Bill very well. Butted heads with Coach, and they didn't necessarily adopt everything that Coach was trying to present to them, at least initially, everything from the socks to the shoelaces to practice habits, study habits, etc. What was your relationship initially like, and did you ever butt heads with Coach?
I didn't really butt heads from Coach because I was really nobody coming into a system that was very established. So I had to earn my way, and it turns out that since we had Lou Alcindor at center and Lynn Shackelford at forward and Curtis Rowe at the other forward, Kenny Heights at guard, there was an established player group there that I was entering into. So I was happy just to get my shots, and I didn't have those sorts of confrontations. But I know Bill. Bill's a good friend. One more thing.
Yeah.
Marcus Johnson interviewed me recently. He asked me, he says, would the culture that was created at UCLA in those days, would the teaching that took place for those athletes still apply today when people come in with very different looks? And so I would say that the basics or the fundamentals, the principles of living life would transfer from one generation to the next and to the next. Things like loyalty and cooperation and teamwork and developing the skills and working hard and being enthusiastic, cultivating the ability to make decisions and think alone. These are things that transfer from one generation to the next. While Coach may have had to adapt to the tats and to the earrings, I think he probably would have, but I think he still would have demanded the same sort of teamwork that was on those teams at UCLA.
Makes sense, yeah.
For sure.
You know, you went to see Coach Wooden 2 days before he passed. You have a story to share there. I wonder if you can kind of just brief us on what that experience was like and maybe kind of end this before we go to a commercial on what was one of the greatest lessons you ever learned from the man.
Received a notice that Coach Wooden was not long for this world from my friend Mike Warren, who played just before me at UCLA. He said, Coach, doesn't look like it's going to be much longer. If you want to see him, go quickly. I called Karen up, my wife. I said, Karen, we got to go see Coach. He's not going to be around much longer. So let's go and pay our respects. So driving up from Newport Beach, where I live, and going up to UCLA was about an hour drive. And I was thinking, what do you say to a person who's been a mentor at this level? What would you say to him? And I really didn't know what to say. There would be so much to say, and I didn't know whether he'd be asleep or awake because he was in and out of coma. Well, anyway, we walked into the Reagan Hospital where Coach was laying, and he happened to be alert at that moment. And so Karen and I walked in arm in arm. And I said, Coach, this is Team Vallely. You know, the one that you helped put together years ago when I was a stupid little 21-year-old and didn't know what to do about this beautiful girl. And I was going off to the NBA, and I was full of myself and going to be a basketball player, doing well. And I just didn't know what to do about Karen, and I came to you. And I asked you what to do, and I came here because I just wanted to thank you for helping me make that decision. Well, Coach Wooden at the time knew that some question was coming, and he stuck his finger in my chest, and he says, you marry that girl. And we'd been there for over a couple of years at that point, and so he got to know Karen, and I think he probably thought more of her than he did of me. But he helped make that decision for me. And the other one was that he taught us about the principles in the pyramid of success that would help deal with challenge and change in one's life. Challenges and changes are what we all deal with for the balance of our lives once we're out of sports. And so I said, Coach, I just want to thank you for all that you taught us that would help us off the court. And those things, as you know, have helped me to get through the loss of a loved one to cancer, to fight my own fight against cancer, and certainly keeping your balance through all the trials and tribulations in life are what you taught, and I'm extremely grateful for that.
Hi, I'm David Wilhelm, and this is Jimmy's Famous American Tavern. Jimmy's has been called a casual comeback for me. I think that's because most of the restaurants that I developed in the past were white tablecloth, upper-end restaurants. Jimmy's was designed as a place for friends and families to gather and enjoy regional American comfort food in a casual setting. Jimmy's Famous American Tavern. Simple and traditional.
So you're listening to KX 93.5, Laguna's only FM. This is Radio Caravan. We're in the studio this morning with John Vallely, former UCLA basketball standout. A few years in the NBA, both Atlanta Hawks and I believe the Houston Rockets, a year or two there. Yeah. You talked about the challenges, John. I'm going to make a very abrupt transition, and I apologize for this, but we're sort of down to the last 10 minutes. In 1988, your 9-year-old daughter, Erin, was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and she passed away several years later. First of all, our condolences for that. You ended up being diagnosed with the sort of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2003. You had your own battles there. I guess my first question for you is, what's the status of your disease?
The status today is I'm 8 years cancer-free, and let's just hope that the DNA and immune system that was contributed to my system in 2006 will continue to maintain its power. That DNA and immune system comes from a guy in Germany, and so I went through a stem cell transplant down in Houston, Texas, at MD Anderson, and so his DNA and immune system were dripped into my bloodstream, and so far they're dominating the system, and it's working.
Yeah. I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like to lose my daughter at such an early age, and I'm wondering if you sort of relied on any of the lessons or teachings that you learned as an athlete or through Coach Wooden that helped you get through both that time and your own sort of diagnoses.
Well, competitive greatness was something Coach was trying to teach, and that means to be the best that you can be when your best is needed. He said the way you grade yourself is by the peace of mind that you have when you know you've given your best to become the best you're capable of becoming. That was true success, even though the dictionary will define it as the accumulation of wealth or the attainment of some position of power. But this competitive greatness thing can be applied to your responsibilities as a father, as a husband, as a businessman. In fact, for me, finding it even helped me to find a personal relationship with God. And in the matter of dealing with cancer, I think it's really important to have a good foundation for dealing with such stressful circumstances. So when my daughter was diagnosed, it was a terrible time for us. She was 9 years old when she was diagnosed, and she went through many, many surgeries to try to help her survive rhabdomyosarcoma, the disease of the soft muscle tissue. So I found myself each day when I went to the hospital getting on the elevator to go up to be with her, and I'd make this prayer: God, help me to be the best father to this little girl as she goes through this. Help me to say the right things. Help me to be the best husband to my wife. So I simply transferred this competitive greatness thing into being the subject of a father or a husband. So then when you thought about the concepts of the pyramid of success, it meant teamwork, eagerness to sacrifice personal interest for the glory of this little child as she sits in this bed and does this fight. That means teamwork. You have to learn the communication skills to survive in that environment. You have to cultivate the ability to make decisions and think alone based on the information that comes in. Your teammates are the nurses. Your teammates are the people who come and clean the room. And you need to be complimented a teammate who helps you achieve. So there I was as this father fighting against an enemy with my daughter, an enemy we couldn't see. And so we had to rely on those things that we could control. And so the concepts that Coach Wooden was teaching in basketball really applied to this personal situation of dealing with the difficult circumstances of a child diagnosed with cancer. I found it hugely helpful. And then at the end of the day, all you want to do is have the peace of mind that you've given your best effort to be the best you can be in each of those circumstances. When it was all said and done, when we lost Erin, I remember sitting with Karen and thinking, we played the game at the highest level. It's just that in that part of our life, we didn't get the result we wanted. Had we not played the game at the highest level in our minds, chances are there could have been other circumstances that would have entered into our life. Most couples get divorced during tough circumstances like that. Many people turn to drugs and alcohol. But we felt we had played the game at the highest level. We had peace about that. And so it helped us keep our balance, even though it was certainly the greatest loss one could ever go through.
And then, John, obviously, from that, I know personally, because this is how we came to know each other, is you and Karen have been amazing in your fight for pediatric cancer research and PCRF in particular. So if you can talk about how you channeled that tragedy into all the great work you've done over the years to support that great cause.
Well, I think we always think that cancer is going to strike somebody else, but it's going to strike 1 out of 3 adults if you live a normal, full life. It strikes children in a great way because it is the largest killer of children under the age of 18 due to disease. The biggest killer to disease. Now, it doesn't happen a lot. It's 1 in 350 or something like that will get some form of cancer. But there are a lot of children being diagnosed every day. And you never think it's going to happen to you. And there we were, playing pro sports, building a business, having a good life as a family, and we now had a child diagnosed with cancer. Well, I was asked to join the board of Pediatric Cancer Research Foundation. One of the people who was working with the outfit came into our room in Children's Hospital in Orange County and asked if I'd be interested in going on the board after meeting me and talking to me. And so we decided that this is a place where we could make a difference. Even if we were late to the table, we thought that we could make a difference here. And so when we lost our child, Aaron, at the age of 12, only 40% of the children were surviving their disease. So today, that survival rate is now up over 80%. So in some way, we feel like we've had a hand in changing the world.
Absolutely. One of the things you've done, which I think is great, and it's been your personal passion for the last few years, is
One minute, Jim.
Dribble for the Cure, which you changed your relationship with UCLA, and you put them in the right direction as well as helping this great cause. So talk about the Dribble.
Dribble for the Cure is a one-day event. It's a few hours in the morning on a Sunday. It's a great event that I learned about through others and brought to UCLA. Dan Guerrero, the athletic director, embraced the concept. It's where children sign up for $10. Team captains are $25. We go out and get sponsors in the neighborhood. We have approximately 500 to 600 kids that will take a basketball and dribble from Drake Stadium out around the campus and back into the Poly Pavilion or the Wooden Center. And they get to go on this little trail of dribbling a ball around the campus with the great UCLA men's and women's basketball team and coaches, and some of the alums participate as well. And it's just a great experience of seeing what it's like to be at the great UCLA plant with the great stars that are there. And so over the last 7 years, we've raised close to $1 million now in children's cancer funds that go also to Mattel Children's Hospital and to about 10 other grantees of PCRF.
Last question. You got 10 seconds to answer this. It's sort of a throwaway question. I was looking this up, and one of the cornerstones of Wooden's Pyramid of Success is enthusiasm. In a one-liner, what are you enthused about these days?
First of all, enthusiasm is the electricity of life. I would encourage any youngster that might be listening, or anybody doing anything with their life, to find their passion. Find a place where they can enjoy themselves. Might be here in the radio or TV room. It could be speaking in some way. It could be all the different professional parts of our potential lives. And find your passion and enjoy it, pursue it, and then try to find your own personal best in doing that. And then you don't have to worry about the results. They'll take care of themselves.